Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show engineered to cut through the noise and get you straight to the crucial insights you need to be truly well-informed. Today, we're plunging headfirst into a topic that feels distant, but has profound and tangible global implications. The complex and constantly evolving threat posed by Iran. What we're seeing isn't just regional maneuvering, it's a strategic shift with, well, global ripples.
That's absolutely right. Our mission today is to unpack this shift. We need to move beyond Iran's traditional proxy warfare to understand its increasing lean towards direct transnational terrorism. We'll try to expose the sophisticated financial networks that fuel these activities and examine the international community's efforts and, frankly, struggles to counter them.
And to do that, we've gathered, well, quite a stack of sources. We're talking detailed reports from the Atlantic Council, crucial security insights from KTAB.
Yeah, good stuff there.
Expert testimony delivered to the U.S. House of Representatives by Gabriel Noronha of JINSA, in-depth analysis from RAND, geopolitical insights from UNET News, and intelligence briefings straight from Recorded Future.
Right, and even a quick look at Wikipedia for a clear definition of sleeper cells, which is relevant here.
Exactly. So let's unpack this. We're going to distill these diverse perspectives into the core facts and insights so you understand not just what's happening, but why it matters and what it could genuinely mean for global stability and perhaps even your own security. Let's start then by looking at Iran's strategic playbook. For years, Iran has masterfully wielded its nuclear program. It's like a critical dual-purpose tool.
Right.
On one hand, it's a powerful bargaining chip in international negotiations. We saw that clearly with the 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA.
Absolutely. But when the U.S. withdrew from that agreement in 2018, Iran didn't hesitate, did they?
Not at all.
They swiftly resumed uranium enrichment, basically turning their nuclear program into an even more potent deterrent against adversaries like Israel and the United States.
And that's where it gets really concerning now.
Exactly, because by September 2024, reports indicated Iran had amassed enough enriched uranium for multiple nuclear devices should they decide to, process it further.
Multiple devices.
Yeah. This isn't just about a single bomb anymore. It amplifies their strategic leverage exponentially. It creates immense uncertainty and makes them a far more formidable and, frankly, unpredictable player on the global stage. It's a clear signal of intent, a strategic card held very close.
So while the nuclear program remains their ultimate poker chip, there's another really significant development. Their traditional proxy forces are facing, well, unprecedented pressure. The recent Israeli military efforts, particularly the war in Gaza, have really hit groups like Hamas hard. Sources indicate that by August 2024, over 17,000 Hamas fighters have been killed. I mean, that's a staggering loss, right?
It is a huge blow. And it's a similar, though perhaps even more strategically impactful, story with Hezbollah in Lebanon. Israel's campaign against them has been relentless. We're talking strategic sabotage operations, precision strikes targeting key leaders, including that high-profile strike that killed Hassan Nasrallah.
A major figure.
Absolutely. These actions have severely degraded Hezbollah's military capabilities. We're talking extensive infrastructure damage, the displacement of millions across the Lebanon-Israel border because of the ongoing clashes.
So they're weakened, but maybe not eliminated.
Well, that's the debate. Some sources question if they can be completely eliminated as deterrents. And ongoing skirmishes certainly suggest, a degree of resilience. But there's no doubt they've suffered significant, perhaps even irreparable, setbacks to their operational capacity.
Okay, so as we see these shifts in the nuclear leverage growing, but their established proxy networks facing this unprecedented pressure, a critical question emerges from the sources. Could this push Iran towards something even more unpredictable?
Like what?
Perhaps a pivot towards direct transnational terrorism. It's a concern that really makes you pause, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. The core concern, laid out right there in our sources, is that with mounting threats of Israeli strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities and these proxies weakening, Iran could turn towards transnational terrorism.
And this isn't just theoretical retaliation.
No, definitely not. It includes the potential activation of sleeper cells.
Okay, let's clarify that term. What exactly are sleeper cells in this context? We hear it a lot, often in thrillers. But what does it mean for real-world threats?
Right. Think of them as covert operatives. People already embedded within a society, maybe living normal lives, just waiting for a specific signal or event to be activated for an attack.
So hidden in plain sight, essentially.
Potentially, yes. While it's often dramatized, the concept highlights a very real concern about pre-positioned assets for future attacks. And Iran and its proxies like Hezbollah, they have used this tactic before.
Like the Buenos Aires bombing.
Exactly. A chilling historical precedent is the 1994 Buenos Aires synagogue bombing. Orchestrated via Hezbollah, massive casualties. There's a tangible fear they could again target U.S. assets, say, the U.S. Fifth Fleet in Bahrain or Israeli and Jewish interests abroad, using these hidden networks.
And what's been particularly striking, as the FBI has noted, is the increasing boldness of some of these plots, even on U.S. soil.
That's right.
We've seen evidence of alleged assassination plots, a notable example being the one against former President Trump during his re-election campaign. That led to an indictment of 3 individuals just back in November 2024.
Which shows a certain level of audacity.
Absolutely. This isn't just about distant threats anymore. It's about a willingness to project power right into the heart of their adversaries.
Yeah.
Now, let's peel back the layers on how Iran actually funds all this. Because understanding the financial backbone, that's key to understanding the scope of their malign activities.
It really is.
Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei's economic philosophy is, frankly, stark. It's quite revealing. He prioritizes using all funds the regime can obtain for the support and conduct of its foreign policy of terrorism.
Leaving just the bare minimum?
Leaving the bare minimum to sustain the needs of a functional state and ignoring entirely the material needs of the Iranian people.
That's a crucial insight, isn't it? It's not just about funding terror, it's a stark reveal of his regime's priorities.
Sacrificing their own people's well-being.
Exactly. For global influence. This isn't just policy, it's a deeply entrenched ideology. It ensures internal suffering fuels external aggression. Domestic stability becomes a direct casualty of their geopolitical ambitions.
And the scale of this spending is just huge.
It's quite staggering. Since 2012, Iran has reportedly spent more than $20 billion supporting foreign terror groups.
$20 billion.
Just think about that, to give you some concrete examples. Hamas reportedly gets over 93% of its budget from the Iranian regime.
93%? Wow.
Yeah. We're talking about annual support recently increasing to $350 million. That's up from $300 million back in 2008. Interestingly, when U.S. sanctions were reimposed in 2019, Hamas was actually forced into an austerity plan, cutting back on things like public salaries.
Shows the bite of sanctions, at least sometimes.
Oh,
And it's not just Hamas, is it? Hezbollah, another key proxy.
Right. They received up to $700 million per year from Iran by 2018. That made up 70% of their total revenue.
70%.
Before sanctions also forced what were described as draconian cuts in 2019. So it really shows the direct impact financial pressure can have. It forces these groups to adapt or, well, suffer.
So how is this all financed? Where does the money actually flow from?
Well, digging deeper, it's remarkable how Iran's terror funding often goes directly through the Central Bank of Iran, the CBI.
Their national bank.
Essentially, yes. But one heavily sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury for funneling billions to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, their elite military and intelligence force, and its various proxies.
And they actively avoid transparency measures.
Absolutely. Iran's conscious opposition to joining the Financial Action Task Force, the FATF blacklist, where it currently sits alongside North Korea, as a high-risk jurisdiction that isn't just an oversight.
It's deliberate.
It's deliberate, because joining would expose those hidden financial transfers used to fund groups like Hamas and Hezbollah. They've explicitly stated that complying would make their international trade harder, but they choose to maintain this opacity precisely to facilitate these illicit flows.
So what's their primary lifeline for all this funding then? Is it oil?
It's largely oil exports, yes. Most Iranian oil revenue goes directly to the IRGC for revolutionary and terror activities. We saw their oil exports rebound dramatically.
How much are we talking?
From a low of maybe 300,000 barrels per day, they jumped to 1.5 to 1.8 million barrels per day by August 2023. That yields roughly $150 million per day.
$150 million a day.
Per day. And a major buyer in this, let's call it illicit trade, China, which purchased an estimated $30 billion worth in 2022 alone. This cash flow is absolutely vital for them.
Okay, this brings us to a really critical point, and something that raises a lot of concern, especially in policy circles. The release of frozen Iranian funds.
Right. The controversy there.
Think about the $6 billion from South Korean banks that was proceeds from oil sales during sanctions waiver periods, or the recent Iraqi payments, $2.76 billion, and then another staggering $10 billion.
Huge sums.
Former Treasury Secretary Jack Lew, among others, raised significant concerns about potential leakage.
What does leakage mean in this context?
It points to Iran's historical tendency to divert funds intended for humanitarian goods straight to terror accounts.
So it's not actually buying food or medicine.
Well, it happens either through outright diversion or simply by using the concept of fungibility, meaning money is interchangeable. So if you release funds specifically for humanitarian aid, that effectively frees up their other existing reserves for terror activities.
Ah, I see. So the humanitarian money allows them to use their own money elsewhere.
Precisely. Or they simply use falsified invoices to obscure the true destination of the funds. It's a very clever and very dangerous shell game.
And beyond state-sponsored oil, these terror groups also have other ways to get money, right? Illicit revenue streams?
Oh, yes. Hezbollah, in particular, operates a sprawling criminal enterprise.
Yeah.
We're talking everything from large-scale drug smuggling, moving narcotics from Latin America all the way to Europe,
Serious international crime.
to cigarette counterfeiting, currency forgery, even sophisticated arms trafficking. These aren't just minor side hustles. They contribute significant, untraceable funds, making them incredibly difficult for international agencies to disrupt. It's a truly global web of illicit finance.
So with Iran's strategic shift and its financial lifelines laid bare, the critical question becomes, how is the rest of the world responding?
Yeah, what's the international community actually doing to counter this complex and evolving threat? And where do they stand in this battle for influence?
Well, European intelligence services have certainly stepped up monitoring of Iran-linked networks within their borders. That includes Hezbollah and Hamas cells.
They're worried about attacks in Europe.
Definitely. This isn't just routine surveillance. It's driven by very real fears of a broader regional conflict spilling over and renewed Iranian activity in Europe. They're actively tracking what they call suspected cells that could be used to destabilize the continent. There's specific alarm about Hezbollah potentially recentering its networks in Europe.
So chaos in the Middle East could directly translate to threats on European soil.
That's the view. They see chaos in Beirut, for instance, as a direct threat that could easily manifest within their own borders.
Speaking of Beirut, Lebanon is in a truly precarious position here, caught in the middle.
Absolutely caught. We've seen Iranian missiles and Israeli interceptors clashing right over its skies, essentially turning their airspace into a dangerous no man's land.
What's Lebanon doing?
Well, Lebanese President Joseph Aoun is reportedly working to secure a protective umbrella for his country.
A protective umbrella.
Essentially a diplomatic and security framework to try and shield it from regional conflict, and also to restore trust with Gulf nations. This aligns with European expectations for comprehensive reforms within Lebanon and, critically, the disarmament of Hezbollah, which really operates like a state within a state there.
Huge challenge.
Massive. And beyond direct terror plots, Iran is also deeply engaged in malign influence operations, information warfare.
Right, trying to sow discord.
Exactly. What's particularly insightful here is how they opportunistically target elections, like the French elections, specifically because of France's support for Israel.
How do they do that?
Iran's International Union of Virtual Media, or IUVM, network, for instance. It uses a web of websites and social media to publish derogatory content, cartoons, videos, articles aimed at undermining target governments.
Does it actually work?
Well, sources suggest the current online engagement for some of these campaigns is considered negligible in terms of truly shaping public opinion. But the intent to promote malign content and exploit political turbulence remains very clear. It's a constant drip of disinformation designed to sow discord.
So what does all of this mean for counterterrorism efforts moving forward? It feels like there's a really pressing need.
There absolutely is. A pressing need for the U.S. and its allies to counter these threats proactively. That means enhanced counterintelligence efforts and robust real-time intelligence sharing. It's about trying to stay ahead of a rapidly adapting adversary.
Finally, let's zoom out to the broader geopolitical chessboard and consider the long-term outlook. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, he has a very clear grand strategy, doesn't he?
He does, and he views the Gaza conflict, which he calls the Al-Aqsa flood attack, as nothing short of a triumph.
A triumph. Why?
His strategic goal seems multi-pronged: to derail normalization between Israel and Arab nations, to sabotage relations with key regional players, and crucially, to invigorate what he terms the resistance axis.
So his strategy aims to turn Israel into a global outcast, pushing it, as the source says, to the brink of the abyss.
That seems to be the goal. It's a deeply entrenched ideological objective. And this ambition certainly has significant economic consequences that ripple far beyond the immediate region.
We saw that with oil prices.
Exactly. Oil prices jumped sharply with the start of Israel's action, and there's a serious lingering risk of much higher energy prices and maybe even a global recession if Iran attacks critical Gulf Arab oil infrastructure or, chillingly, blocks the Strait of Hormuz.
A vital shipping lane.
Absolutely vital. A fifth of the world's oil goes through there.
This also presents a truly significant strategic dilemma for U.S. foreign policy, doesn't it?
A major one. Washington needs to carefully balance the imperative to prevent Iran from getting nuclear weapons with the understandable desire to avoid being drawn into yet another protracted Middle East conflict.
Especially when resources and attention are increasingly needed elsewhere.
Right. For strategic competition with powers like China and Russia, essentially, the U.S. has bigger geopolitical fish to fry, arguably.
But can the U.S. afford to be impartial?
Well, some argue, quite forcefully, that weakening Iran de facto harms the interests of Russia and China, and that the U.S. should not be an impartial observer here, especially given Iran's long history of actively targeting and killing Americans. It's a complex balancing act with incredibly high stakes.
And looking long-term, what are the implications for Iran's nuclear ambitions? This pressure, these potential strikes?
Well, experts suggest that even if Israeli strikes manage to degrade some facilities, such actions are actually likely to incentivize Iran to double down on achieving a nuclear weapons capability.
So it could backfire.
It could push them to actively pursue a nuclear bomb. It's difficult to imagine Iran agreeing to additional restrictions during this heightened period of tension.
Which could lead to.
Chillingly, it could lead to a nuclearized Middle East. If Iran pursues nuclear weapons, it might trigger a nuclear cascade among other regional actors who feel compelled to develop their own arsenals for self-defense. That's really the ultimate nightmare scenario.
Wow. This deep dive has truly laid bare the multifaceted nature of Iran's threat. Its evolving tactics, its unwavering reliance on this global financial network to fund terror, and the complex, often fraught international efforts to counter it.
It really has. And it leaves us with a truly thought-provoking question, I think. Given Iran's persistent strategic goals and its demonstrated resilience, its ability to adapt to pressure, what truly constitutes effective deterrence in today's increasingly interconnected and volatile global landscape? And perhaps even more importantly for you listening, what role do you believe individual citizens play in recognizing and responding to these complex, often hidden threats in our world today?